Hi, Professor Calamanis here. Okay, so I'm just going to continue with the instruction this week. Welcome back. This video is going to cover the method that I use to teach writing for this course. And I just wanted to welcome you back and say we're going to go through this. It's a slide presentation and just some of my own thoughts about arguing and thinking about what Aristotle has to say about rhetoric and also this kind of system that I've come up with. And so there are a couple of different slide presentations, so I'm going to bring up different things. So let me pull up this one group of slides. I'm going to pause here for a moment and I'll be right back. All right, so I covered a little bit of this in the last few weeks. Just going to go over this again, the art of argument and persuasion. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about rhetoric. And I think students sometimes hadn't realized that they were being taught to argue because they write a lot of summaries until they get into the college classroom. So now you're going to take your summaries and turn them into persuasive essays and analytical essays. And so that's just a shift that you'll go through in this very difficult course that you're taking. This is a very difficult course. And yes, it is taken by every student. Okay, so let me open the screen a little bit here. Hope you can see that. Yeah, okay. So you can see, right, it's sort of a classical thing. I talked about the medium, right? So the media, it's the same idea. And what you need to know, sorry, Rocky wants to say hi, is that the purpose of the college essay is often in the assignment. So your professor will say something like, write a summary or analyze the topic, which was what I had said to do. Evaluate. They might say something like compare and contrast. And so you kind of have to understand that that is the purpose of the essay. You almost always write essays. I do sometimes say, oh, just write a paragraph. The aim, again, is to be rhetorical, to argue, or to persuade someone. So, for example, in your first few essays, I'm asking you to argue. I'm saying analyze this. So you're going to take a position and you'll say, this is what I think this is going on this topic. In your solution paper, I'm asking you to persuade, which means I want the person who reads your paper to be motivated to take some kind of action or to at least think about and change the way that they are perceiving things. So your audience in the college classroom is almost always the entire college. So you have to sort of think about it that way, right? You're not writing to me. You're writing to everybody who has ever taken that course. So that means pretty much anybody who's ever been to college should be able to read your paper and understand what's happening. You're not writing to children. You're writing to adults, and they are educated adults. And like I said here, right? So this is Marshall McLuhan. The medium is the message. If I asked you to make a TikTok video, you would probably be able to do it very quickly. But I am asking you to write. And that means that you have to kind of really stick with the medium, which is limited. It's not as flexible as making a video. You can't hear the inflection in somebody's voice in the writing. And so one of the things that English professors do in the college level is we work on the content of the essay, and then we also work on the execution of the essay. There's different kind of appeals when you're writing. So as you're looking at this, you can see in the center it says rhetorical appeals. And then there's these three different ways. Most of our arguments are going to focus on this. What is the ethical argument? Is there a question that we're asking that is the reason that we're talking about this topic at all, right? What does it have to do with the society in which we live? And in this case, anytime you're sort of tempted to use society, you want to think about it as 21st century Americans who were educated, because you're talking to the audience, as I said. And then there are logical appeals and there are pathological appeals. And so when you're watching those speeches that I assigned, you can hear the pathological appeal, right? They start talking about motherhood, or they start talking about the founding fathers. Logical appeals are more like science. For example, here's a pathos appeal, right? A student wrote a paper about oil slicks and the environment. And so you can see here's a bird covered in oil. That's going to elicit some kind of pathos in us. We have a reaction. A logical appeal is more scientific. It has more credible information. It's also going to have more statistical information. Notice this. Here's a logical appeal. I'm going to pause here and see if I can get the screen better. Okay, much better. So let's look at this. This is the kind of thing that a student can put in a paper. You can put a chart in your paper if you want. Notice that the source is listed, cdc.gov. And here is if the student is writing about obesity, which was a big topic when you guys were in high school probably. And you can see here's the research, right, from 1980 to 2010. And now that we're in 2023, there's probably an updated one from the CDC. Facts. This is logic, the logical appeal. Fact and feeling is what makes the ethical argument. So one thing is to think about, we're still having this conversation about gun control, and it's an ethical argument because it involves everybody in our society. What do we accept? What are the standards? What are the appeals? Same thing with other hot topics like the birth control pill, or voter rights, or, criminal behavior in our legislature, moral behavior in our legislature, right? These are ethical arguments. In other words, you put these things together because people have strong feelings about it, but then there are facts. So another reminder is to know your audience, right? If you are speaking to a bunch of gun enthusiasts, you're never going to sway their opinion by saying you should take all guns out of all houses. But if you start to talk about legislating against teenagers having guns, for example, or asking people to have permits for guns, that might actually sway their opinion. So you kind of have to know who your audience is. Here's one here. What kind of appeal is this? So I'm looking at the quote here, 83% of forests are being destroyed, right? And so if you sort of think about that, student is putting this into the paper because it's an ethical appeal. It's saying, why should we destroy the forests? The paper was about becoming a vegan, arguing about why veganism is good. Again, we have the ethical appeal, right? So same paper. This is what the student wrote. Each of us must follow our own conscience and live as we see fit. But if you want to help protect the environment, you'll continue to learn about being a vegan and join me in spreading the word about this valuable lifestyle. So here we go, right? The student is arguing a position and trying to persuade the audience to also become vegan. So this is how we write these. Look at this one, right? This paper is about bullying. You can see the image and you have a statistic. So now it's eliciting feelings, the image, right? But then you have a fact. And so that is an ethical appeal. And this is how your paper is going to be the most successful, to have the ethical appeal. Right? Have some feeling in it and have some facts. Same thing with advertising, right? Here again, we have this student writing about veganism. Sorry, my face is in the way. We can see the appeal. Can we spot the median essay writing, right? So in the last slide, whoops. Oh dear, where am I? Sorry, kids. Here we go. Okay, in the last slide, we have the two things, right? The feelings and the facts. In this one, the feelings and the facts are only in the words. So you look at it. Cows are among the world's greatest producer of methane, which is the second most significant greenhouse gas in the world. That's a quote. Notice it says take part. That means it's from that essay that she read. And then we have the students saying, if you and others choose to become vegan, fewer of these animals would need to be raised, so both pollution and greenhouse gas emissions could be reduced. So you see how she's making an ethical appeal, right? She's saying, here we have this methane gas, and if we do this, it will change the world. Okay, so once again, right, there's the logic, the ethical, and the feelings. Now, how we use those is up to us. Aristotle said that words are powerful. They can drive us to our knees and bring us to tears. They can raise us above our mortal bodies and make us more than we ever dreamed of. Words move us, shape us, and define the whole of the world we live in. They constrain our every thought, yet enable our very being. Okay, so, that's what we're going to be thinking about. We're going to be thinking about, how do I argue? What do I argue? And then the next group of slides, which I'm going to bring up now, are going to talk to you about the teaching method that I use,